feet together, but in a high position. True landing, but you're still standing in a tall position. In working with the beginners, again, I want to emphasize the importance of patience on the coach's part. The athlete needs to have time to let some of these things develop, and needs to learn time to allow themselves to relax at takeoff and in the air. And at this point, for the beginners, I like to see waiting 5 or 6 sessions before you actually even try to get into a landing position. Once they learn to relax and allow these things to happen, the landing is a lot of times just kind of happens. But we want to hold off in that landing progression probably till about the 5th session. And again, doing a lot of run-out landings with the beginners really helps to teach them to relax. After going through the beginner's progression, we're going to progress on to the novice progression. And during that progression, we will focus on the proper takeoff and also trying to further develop their ability to steer on the board. Again, in an effort to get a quickened rhythm going into takeoff. We're going to do 2 drills here. And the first drill is a jog and pop with a run-out landing. And what we're going to do is the athlete's just going to jog, but at the same time he's going to focus on trying to stay up in a tall position, not bending forward, stand up nice and tall, and getting a quickened rhythm into a quick pop off the ground. Then relax in the air and run on out. Okay? First we're going to start with a jog, and then we'll start speeding it up more into a run. But we're just going to try to run a certain distance. When he feels comfortable or she feels comfortable, they're going to go ahead and pop off the ground, then run out. Some of the things that the coach is looking for when the athlete's doing this particular drill is we want to make sure that the athlete is getting a good quick punch off the takeoff, that he or she relaxes in the air, and then finally we want to watch out for certain takeoff preparation problems, how they're setting up on the penultimate stride, on the next to last stride, seeing if it's going to a flatter position or if they're way up on the toes. We're just kind of watching for it, not necessarily making any big corrections at this point. Okay. They've started to speed up, going a little bit faster, more like a run. And one of the things that we want the coach to focus on and watch for are some of the takeoff preparation problems that the athlete may have. Some of the technique things that we're looking for as far as takeoff preparation is their sprint technique, their rhythm going into takeoff. Their posture is a real important part, trying to make sure they're keeping their hips in nice position and staying upright, not bending forward or backward. And then, of course, how they place the penultimate stride. The next set of drills that we're going to work on is something that's going to allow the athlete to enhance their ability to steer. And again, we're going to use the steering mechanism to help us learn to quicken up our strides going into takeoff instead of reaching into takeoff. This next drill is what we refer to as a walk and steer. They're going to walk on the runway here, and they're going to attempt to place their takeoff foot behind each takeoff roll. And the key is that we want to keep their speed up. We don't want them slowing down to do it, but they're going to make just natural adjustments, allowing their takeoff foot to be right behind the takeoff roll. Now, in Jason's particular case, he takes off his left, whereas Catherine is on her right. Just walk fast, walk fast. Okay, keep your speed up. That's it. Okay. Now what you'll notice as the athlete goes through this drill that they make a lot of stride adjustments, and it's a thing that happens naturally. As we go through these drills, it's important to periodically change the distances of the takeoff rolls. As they're doing these drills, it's important to emphasize the importance of taking off, touching close, but not touching the takeoff roll. Another important coaching point is to keep their speed up, not to slow down a whole lot. Okay, keep your speed up, Jason. Keep it up. Get close to the roll. Gotta get close, but don't touch it. That's it. Close, but don't touch. The next drill, we're going to go a little bit faster. We're going to work this into a jog. And what we'll do is we'll take every other takeoff roll out of the line of takeoff rolls here. We'll take out every other one. In this case, we'll move this down just a little bit. This next drill now, we're going to actually start working into a run. Again, we're increasing the distance between the takeoff rolls, giving a little bit more time to build up speed, but we're also wanting them to continue to steer on the takeoff rolls where their foot's right behind it, not on it. The next set of drills we're going to do is a steer and pop drill. The first part of this drill, we're going to have the athlete run back and try and find his or her 10 strides. After we find the mark, then we're going to scoot the mark up a little bit and take off from that area. Both of them are going to start from the scratch line back there, going back away from the pit. We're going to get their steps, and we're going to eventually do a run out landing going away from the pit. First, we're going to find their steps. Now, in Jason's case, at the very end, he started reaching a little bit and not quickening up. So what I'm going to do is, instead of moving him up a foot, I'm going to move him up about 1.5 feet to 2 feet. Okay, so when you're watching them, watch if they're reaching or if they're quickening up. If they quicken up, let's move them up a foot closer. But if they reach, it's 2 feet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place the takeoff roll where their foot was, but remember, we moved it forward, so they should be slightly crowded. We're going to put the takeoff here, the takeoff roll down. They're going to run and steer and pop on the roll and run on out. In doing these takeoff drills on the turf, it's important to try to do it on a soft surface if you can, often grass or some type of padding. But in this case, we primarily have the track surface to work with. But grass is a good one to do a lot of takeoff drills in this manner. One of the good reasons why we try to do these types of takeoff drills is they never anticipate landing on 2 feet. They know that they got to run out of their landing. So it allows them to learn to relax not only at takeoff, but in the air. In executing these drills, the primary focus at first is steering. We want to make sure that the athlete stays right behind the takeoff roll. The secondary emphasis is going to be takeoff. Once they get accustomed to steering and actually popping off the ground, then we want to start focusing on maybe a quick punch off the ground, keeping our posture up. It's really difficult if an athlete's bending forward and trying to take off. We'll try and keep the upright posture and a quick punch, run out and get ready for the next takeoff roll. This is the steer and pop drill where we're actually doing it from a run. I've taken out the middle takeoff rolls so we have a little bit more distance to get a little bit more speed. Keep in mind when these athletes are doing these drills, we haven't really set up any kind of measured distances or anything like that. They're just making the stride adjustments to hit right at the takeoff roll. Okay, after doing the run-out landings going away from the pit, we're going to turn around and start where they were taking off, steer onto the scratch line, but this time we're going to put a takeoff roll right at the scratch line so that they instantly know whether they're stepping over or not. Then they're just going to get a good quick punch off the board and run out of their landing. Well, the most important phases of the long jump is the approach. And part of making the approach more effective, one of the things that we really have to focus on is sprint technique. Not only does sprint technique help you become faster, but it also aids in preparing for a much better takeoff. The first thing that we try to get the athletes to work on is how they position the hips. It's what we call tucking the hips. And the hips have the ability to tilt forward like this or to actually tuck back in this position. What we would like to have the athlete do as they're running is to keep the hips tucked. If my belt buckle was the rim of a bucket of water, we'd like to have the hips tilt back or tuck in such a way that it would be level, or the water might be spilling out the back, but never out the front. What this does, it places the hips in such a position where the knees come up in a higher position easier, plus the stretch reflex that the athlete gets as a result of tucking the hips through here makes the leg come through quicker. The next thing we're going to focus on is what we call lining the heels. As the athlete's running, what we want to have the athlete do is when the foot pushes off the ground like this, we'd like to have the heel move in a straight line from here to a point right up under the rear. A lot of athletes have trouble when they're running is that the heel wants to kick back and up in this direction, causing the knee to finish in a low position. But if the heel lines up in a straight line up under the rear here, the knee finishes high and actually moves a lot quicker. The third thing that we focus on is what we call drive completion. We want to make sure that the athletes complete the drive phase of each running stride. And we do this by working on a specific drill we call lunge bounds. So when the athlete's actually trying to sprint, especially at the first of their approach, we want to make sure that they finish the drive with the leg. It's very easy for an athlete to finish the drive here because they're trying to pull the leg up, trying to make their legs move fast, but not finishing the drive phase. Okay? And there are times when the athlete finishes here, but as they continue forward, the leg straightens out, but they've quit driving. We need to complete the drive phase of each stride. So we'll work on the lunge bounds that you'll see a little bit later to work on that specific technique. The fourth thing we're going to focus on is what we call dorsiflexion. And basically that is when the foot comes off the ground, we want the toe to remain pointing upward like this. Instead of swinging the foot through, pointing the toe forward, we want it coming, lifting the toe up, almost like you're locking the ankle in this position. The first set of drills that we're looking at are drills that focus on positioning the hips. The first drill is what we refer to as a flat back. And what we're going to do is have the athlete lay on the floor like this and position the feet flat on the ground. And what you're going to normally find is that they can put their fingertips together. Try and touch your fingertips together. Normally in this position, their fingertips under their lower back will touch. All right, pull them out. And what we want to have them do is to roll the hips back so that their lower back is flat against the ground. So now if they tried to touch their fingertips, they would have trouble doing so. Okay? Now, that is just a simple drill to understand what we're trying to accomplish. We want to flatten the lower back by rotating the hips backwards. This drill is referred to as the cat back. And what we're doing, when we start this drill, we want them to let the back sway. We're letting the hips tilt forward in the wrong direction. So we want the back to sway like an old horse. Now, what we want to do is try to actually have them tuck the hips in a position, roll the hips up where their back is flat, like this. Okay? And that's that's the drill we refer to as the cat back drill. Now, cat back drill is kind of over an exaggeration. We don't want them to be all humped up like this. We want them to be nice and flat. Then what we do is we go ahead and tuck the hips again. Tuck them. Now what we're going to do is we're going to step up, stand up, and uncoil. Keep the hips locked in. Keep the hips tucked. Stand up and straighten up. One of the problems that athletes have when they first do this drill is they're using their upper abs to keep their hips in place, when we just want to use the lower abs right in this area. The next drill is a bend and tuck drill, where they start with their hands on the knees. Now they're going to roll the hips under and stand up. This is a drill. It's a very simple drill. It's a good way of starting out the sprint drills that we do following positioning of the hips. On the next set of drills, what we're focusing on is not only tucking the hips and holding them in position, but the lining action of the heels. And this drill is what we call a walk and line. They're just going to walk normal in a normal pattern, but the focus is going to be with one leg. They're going to really focus on lining it in a high position. In this particular instance, we're going to walk and line the left leg only so that we can see exactly the direction the heel should be headed. Okay, go ahead and go, Dan. Danny, go.